Hello teachers! I finally have some time to make a new video. It's been a very busy summer. I have a summer job. I'm also a young mother, as you guys know. So I've actually been putting off my Canvas planning quite a bit. I've had expected to create at least 2 quarters of curriculum by now, but it hasn't been a possibility. So today that I actually have time, I thought I would take you through how to create a very simple quiz using my 3 favorite quiz types. Now, we all know how to create a basic multiple choice quiz. You don't even need Canvas for that. You can use any other software. Hell, you could even write it on Microsoft Word and print it out. But what I love about Canvas quizzes, and I think any teacher does who uses Canvas, is that Canvas quizzes grade themselves, and you can use them over and over and over again with any class. And just update them as you need to. So what's not to love about that? Because none of us want to spend hours grading. We want something that we can invest a little bit of time on at the beginning, and then we can reuse so that it grades itself automatically as we progress through different school years. Now, this school year is bound to have a lot of, or not a lot of, but a big virtual component. So I wanted to get ahead and create some of those virtual quizzes and assignments that my students would expect to do, specifically for my 2D Studio Art class, because that's not a class that I have developed all that much. In front of me, I have a basic quiz that I have done from a selection of questions that I've used before. So over here, the very first question is a multiple choice where students have to decide on 1 or 2 answer choices. That one's pretty simple. The other one is a matching. Matching is one of my 3 favorite question types, because I can pretty much add as many categories to the matching question as I want to. So a matching question could basically be the quiz itself. You could have a matching question that's worth 10 points, and that's a 10-point quiz for that week's grade. So I really like using matching questions quite a lot. And then we have the fill in the blank. And fill in the blank questions are designed so that students just can't go and select any particular answer choice. They really have to think about it. You can customize the fill in the blank questions so that students can get credit, for example, if they misspell the word that they're supposed to write in, or you can be a little bit more challenging for students and make sure that the spelling has to be on point if they wish to get credit for that particular question. So fill in the blank is definitely one of my favorite choices, because I don't want students to just memorize. I want them to actually understand what the particular technique of drawing is, how it looks, why it's used, and I want them to be able to write it out. I wanted to see if I had another one of my other favorite options. This is just your typical multiple choice. It is not one of my favorites because, again, I don't feel like it's that challenging for students. But the one that I'm really interested in is the multiple answer option, which allows students to choose multiples from several different choices. In art, there's rarely one right answer. It's not like math. So I like that I can add multiple choices for students to choose from when we are discussing things like how an artist might have used this particular element of art or a principle of design. So without further ado, I'm going to take you through the steps to how to create a very, very simple quiz and how you can use my 3 favorite quiz types. So I'm going to go to my planning course, and I'm going to go to my Practice Makes Perfect module as per usual. Whenever I want to make anything new, I go to the plus sign in the module and I select quiz from the drop-down menu, new quiz, and I'm going to give it a name. This one's just going to be called Demo Quiz for now. You can always change the name later. Alrighty, so I'm going to click on the actual name of this quiz. The 2 components that I need to be aware of in a quiz are the settings for the quiz and then the actual question types. Anytime I'm going to do anything on Canvas, I know that I have to click on the edit button with the pencil if I actually want to go and create some content. Alright, now the quiz settings on Canvas are called details. Why? I have no idea. If I was the creator of Canvas, I would have called it settings. I would have called it something that a teacher can obviously understand a little better, but I wasn't the creator, I'm just using it. So first thing I want to do is maybe give it a more specific name. If my name is going to be all about, hold on a second. If my quiz is going to be all about space and art, the element of space, then maybe this is going to be the space quiz, right? I want to be a little bit more specific so that I know what it is and what students know what it is. In the instructions, you can add any kind of multimedia element that you may want to do. So for example, if students have to read from an article to get the information from the questions, or they have to watch a certain video to get that information, you can go ahead and place it here either by embedding the video content as I've taught you guys in previous videos, or you can go into the files and basically upload that particular article or whatever the case may be. But I'm really not concerned about the quiz instructions right now. Typically, if I'm gonna add instructions at all, they're gonna be very basic, such as read each question and answer choice carefully. I feel like my quizzes are pretty standalone, pretty easy to follow, so you know, directions aren't really not necessary. All right, then I'm going to scroll down in my settings, and I have two options for the quiz. It can be a graded quiz or an ungraded quiz, which would be a practice quiz. So this would be like if you are doing something to review for your midterm or your final, you know, you might want to make it a practice quiz where students don't really get points for it, and they can do it as often as they wish to do. For graded survey and ungraded survey, to be perfectly honest with you, I haven't used the survey option in Canvas. I feel like the survey option in Microsoft Forms is a lot better, and I can do a future video on that if any of you desire, because they have a lot more options and it's just easier to use. So for right now, I'm just going to focus on graded quiz. And if I want to sync this to my gradebook, I'm going to select Sync to SIS. If I don't want students necessarily to get points for it, that would go to the gradebook. I can just select that, deselect that, I'm sorry. Now, shuffle answers, I am definitely, positively going to select shuffle answers, because let's say I have one student sitting right here and the other one sitting right here. But with social distancing, I don't know, they might be a little bit more spaced apart. But I don't want them to just, you know, go like this and be able to see what the other person is answering in the exact same order. So this way the answer choices are going to be presented in a different order, so they can't. Sorry about that, the dogs went a little crazy downstairs. What I was saying, when I select shuffle answers, that way they can't just go and say, oh, well, the answer is B, so I'm going to just select that. They'll have the same exact answer choices, just in a different order. Now, if I want to give it a time limit, I can definitely put in here however many minutes. So if the quiz is only meant to be taken for 10 minutes, I can just put that in and then it's going to time out automatically. However, I like to respect students' accommodations, and a lot of them you can accommodate by giving extra time. So typically I don't give a time limit. I do, however, like to allow for multiple attempts. Typically, I like to allow for my students to take a quiz twice, so that if, I don't know, if they didn't do so well the first time, if they had like a total brain fart, they are allowed to take it again and get a better score. However, this is very important. You have to select what quiz score the Canvas is going to keep for them. So highest would mean if the student gets a D the first time and then gets a C, they would get the C automatically as their final score grade. Latest would be like the latest score. If they get an A the second time, that's the grade that's going to carry. Typically, just to be fair, I select average. So if the student gets a C and a B, Canvas is going to calculate both scores and get something in between as their final score. And that's how I typically set all my quizzes. If I scroll down, I have an option to select how my students are going to get feedback for the quiz. So one great thing about quizzes on Canvas is that they can review the right and wrong answers that they selected. However, I am able to hide some of that information for them. So if I'm going to allow them to take a quiz twice, I don't want them to see the correct answer after the first attempt, because then it's just too easy. I will select only after last attempt so that students can view all the information after they've taken the quiz twice. That being said, if you want to have them see all the answers automatically, but maybe you don't want them to see it till Friday when all your classes are done taking the quiz, you can actually go and select the exact date that students may see your answer. So let's say I have a class this summer and all my classes are taking the same quiz and they will finish taking the same quiz on July 10th. You could go on and select that exact same date for all students to be able to see all the right answers when you're all done with testing. So I think that's a pretty cool option. If I scroll down further, I can select to show one question at a time or not. Show one question at a time is basically exactly what it says. Instead of students being able to scroll down on the quiz, they would just see one question as they keep going forward. So some teachers, like to set this option for some students who maybe get challenged seeing a lot of information. Typically, I don't use it. It's a preference. Require an access code. This is really important. I don't want my students to do quizzes from elsewhere where I can't supervise them. So typically, I will go and create some kind of access code for each class. So let's say my period 1 has an access code that is ice cream. After my period 1 finishes all their quizzes, I might go and change it so that period 2 will get the panda access code. Then period 3 will come in. I don't want them to have the same exact access code, so maybe I'll change it to koala. I tend to give a lot of silly access codes so nobody can really guess. If the students are just taking the quiz from home and you don't really have time to email every single student the access code, I would suggest you just deselect it. And then lastly, this is where you put in the date that the quiz is due. It's very important for you guys to put in a due date if you want Canvas to transfer those scores to your gradebook. If you don't put in a due date, it will not transfer. So let's say my quiz is due July 10th. I'm just gonna make it due at that time. I'm gonna scroll down, click save, and you're thinking, wait Liz, you never wrote any actual quiz questions. This is where I'm gonna go and get started on the quiz itself. I like to save in between steps because, I don't know, it makes me feel a little bit more secure, like I didn't just lose all that if my computer were to turn off or my dog knocks the computer off the table or whatever the case may be. All right, so I'm gonna go back to edit. Now, we just finished working on the details, or what I call the settings. So I'm gonna flip to this tab called questions, and this is where I can start adding all the questions that I want my quiz to have. So for right now, I'm just gonna start with 3 of my favorite question types. So I'm gonna click on new question. And over here, I have the options to choose from. So multiple choice, I think I don't really have to go over. Every single teacher knows what multiple choice looks like, just like true and false. The ones that I wanna focus on today are gonna be fill in the blank, multiple answers, and matching. If you are a math teacher, you might want to consider working on the numerical question or formula question. I can't advise you on how to do that because I'm not a math teacher and I've never used it before, but I want to show you guys that there's a lot of different options to choose from within one quiz. All right, so the first one I want to work on, I think, is going to be fill in the blank. So within the fill in the blank, in the rich content editor right here, this is where I would fill in whatever sentence my students need to read. So the sentence might read blank space refers to the subject of the drawing or painting itself. Okay, now the possible answers would basically refer to whatever students have to fill in the blank with. So I know that the answer is positive. Positive space refers to the subject of the drawing or painting itself, right? I don't know, if for whatever reason my students are not good spellers, I can give them a little leeway and kind of anticipate how a student might spell positive. Maybe a student would spell it with a Z instead of an S. I don't know. So I might want to give them credit if they do so. However, I think it's kind of unlikely because positive is a very simple word in my opinion. So I'm going to delete that answer choice. So that one answer choice that I plugged in here, that's what students have to fill in, and that's what Canvas is going to consider as the correct answer to this particular question. Before I save this actual question type, I want to talk about a few things here. So if I feel like this particular question is a difficult question and it should be worth more points, I can just change the pointage and set it to 10 points, 5 points, however many points I feel this particular question is worth. I'm just going to leave it at 1 right now. And then if I want to code this question somehow, and by coding it, I mean it's going to go to a question bank, and that's a subject for a future video. It's going to go to a question bank with a bunch of questions that I can reuse later. I want to make it easier for myself to find when it goes into that question bank. So maybe I'm going to code it with space quiz, just to make it easier for me to find later on. But don't worry about it. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, you can just leave it blank as is. It's not really going to affect the question itself. What I have seen other teachers do is if they have to demonstrate that they are meeting whatever particular standards that they have to meet in their classes, I've seen some teachers put in the standards. So if your standard starts with VA and then I'm just going to plug in some random numbers, they might put in the actual strand of the standard in there, just as a way to catalog the question. But again, if that's not important to you, just leave it blank. Nobody's going to care. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to select update question. And I have to do that every single time I am done with a particular question. Moving on, I'm going to go to plus new question to add my next question in the quiz. It's already saved to fill in the blank, so I'm going to go and select matching this time. So for my instructions, I may want to put something such as match the vocab word to the definition, or I could go in and attach an article, put in a video. If I need to put in more information, I have the space to do so. So what match the vocabulary term to the definition. In this case, I'm just going to keep it simple. So I want them to be able to tell me what space is in art. I want them to be able to tell me what negative space refers to. And I think just for kicks, I'm gonna put in notan. And if you have no idea what notan is, it's just it's a Japanese word and it refers to the balance of light and dark. All right, so this is where I would put in whatever definition I have for space. So space is blah blah blah, negative space is blah blah blah, and notan is Japanese blah blah blah. I don't really feel like writing out the definition right now. I can go in and add however many answer choices and definitions I want. This is why I think that matching is one of the best question choices, because you can basically build a whole quiz with just one question. So if I had, how many do I have? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 answer choices and my quiz just has those 7 questions itself. I can just go and change the points to 7 and that's your quiz right there. Simple mini quiz for students to do when they come into class or whatever the case may be. But in this case, since it's just 3 options, I'm just gonna select for points 3, and I'm gonna go and delete all the empty ones. You do wanna delete any of the empty answer choices because then students are just gonna see an empty box and it might be confusing to some of them. So I'm gonna select update question. If I feel like at any point in time I need to add more vocabulary terms, or if I have the ability to go in and change the definitions, or not the ability, I'm thinking of the desire to do so. I don't right now. I can go in and click on the plus sign and edit the question at any point in time. For right now though, I'm just gonna select update question. So last question type that I wanted to show you is gonna be matching. No, I'm sorry, I just did matching. It's gonna be multiple answers. So I'm gonna click plus new question. And from the answer question options, I'm gonna select multiple answers. So multiple answers is gonna be similar to a multiple choice question. I might have students select, the question might read, for example, select all the kinds or the types of space in art. Now, there is positive space, there's negative space. You know what, I'm just gonna leave it as positive and negative, and then I might wanna put in some false options. So I might put, I don't know, radial, and I might put no tan. Now, the right answer choices that students have to select from are positive and negative, right? So right here where you see that little arrow, I have to click on the arrow, and when it's highlighted in green, that's how I know that Canvas knows this is the right answer. So positive is one of the right answers. Likewise, I'm gonna do that to negative so that Canvas knows this is a right answer as well. And just like before with the matching question, I can go in and add however many answer choices I want to. So if I want them to choose from 10, there's nothing to stop me from adding them. I'm just gonna keep it pretty simple, and I'm gonna leave it at 4. And because this particular question has 2 answer choices, maybe I wanna go in and change the points to 2. Sometimes I'll let students know within the actual body of the question, select 2 or select multiple or whatever the case may be, so that they can't come and go, oh, I didn't know I had to select multiples, which whatever, if they had studied they would, but that's not the case. Just like before, anytime I'm done with a particular question, I'm going to select update question. Now, I can see so far I have a tally of 6 points for this one quiz so far. I'm going to select save, and now I'm going to preview it. Alright, I know there's going to be instances in our teaching career that we are just too busy to preview, we're too busy to double check, but I highly suggest that you move whatever you have to do aside and preview your quizzes before you submit them to your students, because if you give them a quiz that has wrong answers, they're going to call you out on it, they're going to expect bonus points. You know how our students can be. So every time you create a quiz on Canvas, you click this preview button right here, and it's going to show you what the quiz looks like when your students take it. So I can start taking this quiz as a student. If I had put a time limit for my quiz, it would tell me right over here you have, I don't know, 59 seconds left, whatever the case may be. All right, blank space refers to the subject of the drawing or painting itself. I know the answer is positive. Match the vocab term to its definition. I'm just gonna select some random things. And select all the types of space in art. So I'm gonna select my multiple answers. For multiple answers, students will see like a little square to select from instead of the circle for multiple choice. So that's one other way that students can try to figure out that they have multiple choices. So I'm going to select positive, negative. And now that all my questions are answered, I can click submit quiz, and Canvas may give me a final score and may give me feedback. So over here, I can see that I got 4 out of 6, and I see that Canvas is giving me half points for this particular question because I got something wrong. Now, if you guys will recall, I specifically selected students can see the correct answers after the last attempt so that the student couldn't go and write it down and then cheat in taking the quiz again. So this is what they would see. They would see, okay, I got it wrong. I need to figure out what I got wrong. But they're not going to get the specific answer choice given to them. If you want to be a little bit more lenient with your students, you can definitely go in to the edit button, go to details or your settings again, and play around with these settings so that students can see their correct answers at any time. I am a high school teacher. I know my students like the back of my hand. I'm not going to give them that option. But it's up to you. If you teach elementary school and you want to be a little bit more lenient, this is definitely something you can play around with. So I am going to go and continue this quiz. I'm actually going to spend a little time on the definitions. I'm going to go in and add a few more not answer choices or question choices so that the quiz has a little bit more variety for my students. If you have any questions on how I created this quiz, or if you have any suggestions for future videos, or you just want to say hi, leave a comment below and let me know how it goes for you. I hope you're having a safe summer and you're psyched to return to school in the fall. Bye.